This is Armenia Unlocked, a weekly edition from CivilNet, with your host and executive producer, Susanna Petrosyan.
Hello and welcome to Armenia Unlocked. Today's episode is a review of migration numbers and attitudes towards migration in Armenia. What were the trends? What are the trends? What are the attitudes about both out-migration and in-migration? And how has the Velvet Revolution impacted all of this? In a bit, we'll be joined by the head of the Migration Service of Armenia, Armen Ghazarian, to help us answer some of these questions. But before that, a bit of news from Armenia's neighbors. First to the west, Aras Publishing House in Istanbul was selected as a Publishing House of the Year by Dunya Newspaper Books magazine. Aras was founded in 1993 by Hrant Dink, Mgrdich Margosyan, and Edward Tovmasyan. It is the only publishing house in Turkey that publishes books both in Armenian and in Turkish. In his acceptance speech, Aras's editor-in-chief, Robert Koptash, said, quote, "Although there is an unbearable atmosphere in Turkey on the basis of demolition of all democratic mechanisms and institutions, there's always strong solidarity among civil and democratically minded circles." He told CivilNet that the award is a sign of increased understanding of the importance of the Armenian problem, culture, literature, and history in the struggle for a more democratic and pluralist Turkey. Now turning to the east, last week, nearly 20,000 attended what has become one of the largest protests in recent years in Azerbaijan's capital of Baku. The country's opposition organized a demonstration calling for the release of imprisoned blogger Mehman Huseynov and other political prisoners. Huseynov, who was sentenced to 2 years in jail, was presented with new charges in December of 2018, and in response to which he began a hunger strike. The European Parliament and various international human rights organizations criticized Azerbaijani authorities, demanding freedom for the blogger. In an interview with CivilNet, Azerbaijani journalist and activist Arzu Geybulayeva said the protests have sparked new hope in the country. Now back to migration in Armenia. In 2017, 950,000 people born in Armenia were living in other countries. For comparison, let's look at other post-Soviet countries. In the same year, 2017, 840,000 people born in Georgia were living in other countries, and a little over 1 million people born in Azerbaijan were living outside of that country. Joining us on the phone here is Armen Ghazarian, head of Armenia's Migration Service. Hi, Armen, and welcome to the show.
Hello.
When we talk about in-migration, what are some positive trends we're seeing?
So, hello and thanks for having me. The positive trends about inward migration towards Armenia have been seen during 2018 and specifically in the second half of 2018. It is this difference between entries and exits to the country, which we usually call migration saldo, which has improved. So if we take the first 9 months of the 2018, the difference between entries and exits is minus around 15,000, while the same number for 2017 was around minus 53,000, which is a significant change that we're witnessing. Obviously, in a few days, we will have the full sort of assessed data for 2018, and we will have a full picture. But these numbers already show us that we have some positive developments regarding migration. The second thing that I wanted to mention is about the Armenian nationals asking for asylum in the European countries, and we know that the European countries are the main destinations where Armenian nationals ask for asylum. And according to European statistics, the first 9 months of 2018 have seen a significant drop in this number compared to 2017, which is another positive trends. So if we combine those two, we can say that we have positive developments in this area.
And does this in-migration impact out-migration? Is there any evidence of that?
Could you specify the question a bit? What does it mean? I didn't get the question.
What I mean is, does the positive trends of inflow into the country, does it impact people's attitudes towards out-migration?
I haven't seen any research that sort of stipulates that. I cannot tell that. I don't know.
So that's something that should be studied, probably.
That is something that requires a thorough research. I'm sort of not inclined to make any statements without having the evidence-based research here.
We appreciate that. And how have the actual numbers or just the attitudes about out-migration changed since the Velvet Revolution?
And again, you know, there is no clear research on that. There is one thing that we can take into account is that previously we had researches which stated that the majority of the people who leave the country are leaving for the reasons mainly connected with the economic situation. And about 20% roughly leave the country because of, let's say, social and psychological reasons, for not having any perspective for their personal lives or the lives of the country. And the second half of reasons has been changed, and this is certified also by the numbers that I mentioned previously regarding the change of the dynamic between the entries and exits to the country. And also it is reflected in this lowering number of Armenian asylum seekers in the European Union, which is also a significant change.
And does your office collaborate with the Statistical Service of Armenia?
Yes, sure. For sure, yes.
And do you do any data collection yourself?
Yes, of course.
What kind of data do you look at? What kind of information are you trying to get?
The main two types of statistics that are generated by the Migration Service are connected with the asylum statistics and with the readmission statistics, because we are the sole body that implements the asylum procedure in the country, and we are also the responsible body for the implementation of the readmission agreements that this country has. So these two types of statistics are generated in our service, but we definitely collaborate also with the statistical agency of the country in various aspects and quite largely.
And maybe for our listeners, you can elaborate on the mission of the Migration Service of Armenia, of your office. You mentioned a couple of the things that you do.
Sure. There are a few areas that we are responsible. As I told you already, the asylum policy and the asylum procedures, this is the sole competence of the Migration Service. Of course, we implement those procedures in strong collaboration with our other state agency colleagues. Also, as I said, this forced return things, we work with the forced returnees and with the readmission, we implement the readmission agreements that the Armenian side has signed with different countries, mainly with our European countries and with Russia, but currently we're working on enlarging this number of countries that we have readmission agreements with. Another aspect is about the integration policy. We are also the body that develops the integration policy, and currently we are in the process of comprehensive review of the integration policy. We hope to have one single policy with different action plans directed towards different target groups. So these are sort of three main areas where we work in, but also we are responsible for migration policy development, because migration is, it is a multidisciplinary area, and it is almost impossible to have one body dealing with all the issues. So we have sort of this differentiated responsibilities structure in migration policy, but we are the body that is responsible for the coordination of the policy and for the policy development.
And Armen, you mentioned earlier about the need for researchers to study, for example, the attitudes about migration since the Velvet Revolution. What are other areas of migration that at least you feel that need more studying and more data collection that scholars or researchers who are listening to this can hear about?
I would concentrate on two areas. There have been a few researches on the reasons of emigration from Armenia. But sort of the last research I have seen was from 2016. So we need an update on these issues. So the reasons and the flows from Armenia, this is quite important. And the second thing is that we are currently witnessing this immigration trend, as we have spoke previously, about people who are coming into Armenia. And we don't have a comprehensive immigration policy. The whole policy basis has been developed coming from the idea that Armenia is a country of emigration, but currently Armenia is also a country of immigration. We are in this in-between phase, so we need also a comprehensive study of immigration flows into Armenia and what type of policies we need to cope with the issues that arise from the immigration. So these are the two areas, the reasons for emigration and also a policy research on immigration. I think those two would be pretty relevant also in practice.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Armen.
Thank you, Suna. Take care.
And thank you for listening to this edition of Armenia Unlocked. And for much more, follow CivilNet on Twitter, Facebook, and at civilnet.am. My name is Susanna Petrosian. You've been enjoying Beirut's music, and special thanks to our podcast producer, Sarin Habeshian.